My name is Elena Hart. I am 29 years old. I wish I could say this story starts in a quiet, ordinary moment, but it doesn't. It starts with my throat closing, my vision blurring, and the man I loved watching me struggle to breathe with a look that wasn't fear or concern, but something closer to curiosity. Even now, when I replay that night, there are flashes that move in slow motion. The metallic tang in my mouth, the way the room tilted around me, his almost amused expression when I reached for my EpiPen like he thought I was putting on a show. Before the paramedics rushed through our door, before I handed them a plastic bag of half-eaten spaghetti as evidence, before the police arrested him in the ER waiting room, this was just my life. 18 months ago, I was engaged to him, Ethan, 27 at the time. We had been together for 2 years, engaged for 4 months. We had a wedding set for next spring. Save the dates were out. Deposits were paid. Our parents were discussing seating arrangements and color schemes. I thought I knew who I was marrying. Here's what you need to know up front. I have a severe peanut allergy, not the I get a little itchy kind. The kind that shuts your throat, drops your blood pressure, and sends your parents running behind an ambulance. I was 6 years old the first time it happened. A birthday party. Cake that shouldn't have had peanuts in it but did. I remember bright balloons, the feeling of my tongue swelling, the panic in my mother's voice, and then the whiteness of hospital lights. After that, my life became a series of precautions. I carry an EpiPen everywhere. I read labels. I ask uncomfortable questions at restaurants. I don't eat if I don't feel safe. When I met Ethan, I told him about my allergy on our very first date. Not because it's a fun conversation starter, but because it's the kind of thing someone needs to know if you're sharing food, kissing, or thinking about a future together. He nodded, looked appropriately serious, and told me his cousin had a shellfish allergy, so he got it. Back then, I felt relieved. It felt like understanding. For a while, that seemed true. When we cooked together in my tiny apartment kitchen, he would hold up ingredient labels for me to read. At restaurants, he didn't complain when I asked the server about peanuts or cross-contamination. He joked once that dating him meant always knowing where the nearest hospital was, and I laughed, because at the time it felt like dark humor, not prophecy. The shift didn't happen all at once. It came in small, almost invisible cracks. A sigh when I double-checked a menu. An eye roll when I asked a waiter to confirm a dish didn't have peanuts. One night I heard him murmur under his breath that I was being dramatic when I insisted on sending a plate back after the server admitted they weren't sure about the sauce. I told myself he was tired, stressed, that I was reading too much into it. Then, about 6 months before everything blew up, the comments sharpened. We were at his parents' house for dinner. It was a big night. His mom had invited some extended family, including his ex-girlfriend, Chloe, who was still weirdly close with them. The table was full. His mom had made a beautiful spread of food, including a fragrant dish with a sauce that smelled suspiciously like it could contain peanuts. I did what I always do. I asked, "Hey, this smells amazing," I said politely. "Can I just check if there are any peanuts in the sauce?" His mom immediately smiled and started reassuring me, offering to show me the ingredients. She was kind about it, almost apologetic that I even needed to ask. Ethan, on the other hand, laughed. "She's paranoid about food," he told his mom casually. "She uses the allergy as an excuse to be picky." The entire table heard it. I felt my face flush hot. Chloe smirked into her wineglass. I had that familiar sinking feeling, the one where you're not sure if you're overreacting or if you've just been publicly shoved under a bus. I corrected him, right there. "It's not an excuse," I said quietly but firmly. "It's a medical condition." His mom didn't hesitate. She pulled out bottles and jars from the kitchen, let me read every label, and adjusted what she could. She was wonderful. But when I glanced back at Ethan, he didn't look grateful that I was safe. He looked annoyed that I'd contradicted him in front of everyone. On the drive home, the tension finally snapped. "You embarrassed me," he said, gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. "You made me look crazy in front of my family." "All I did was ask what was in the food," I replied, "because I don't want to stop breathing at your mom's dining table." "You make everything about your allergy," he shot back. "It's exhausting." The word lodged in my chest like a stone. Exhausting. As if staying alive around a known allergen was an inconvenience he had to endure. We fought. I cried. He raised his voice. Eventually he apologized, said he'd been stressed from work, that he didn't mean it like that. I accepted it because that's what you do when you're planning a wedding and everyone is already invested in your relationship. You accept. You move on. You tell yourself it's a one-time thing. But it wasn't. At restaurants, he started ordering dishes with peanut sauces and then pushing his plate toward me. Just try a bite, he'd say. You're overthinking it. When I refused, he'd scoff. You're impossible. You act like the world is out to poison you. His friends picked up on his tone. At a party, one of them joked that I was high maintenance because of the whole allergy performance, and Ethan laughed along instead of shutting it down. I laughed too, but it felt like my skin didn't fit right. I started wondering if maybe I really was overreacting. Maybe I was making my condition too central. Maybe I was the problem. 2 months before the night that nearly killed me, he brought home takeout. It was my favorite noodle dish from a place we both liked, but when I checked the container, peanuts were clearly listed in the ingredients. I can't eat this, I said. He immediately got defensive. You're being ridiculous, he said. It's trace amounts. That's not going to kill you. That's exactly what can kill me, I said. That's what severe means. He rolled his eyes and muttered something about me being dramatic as he sat down and ate it himself while I made a sandwich alone in the kitchen. It should have been a glaring red flag. It was. But we had already sent the save the dates. Our deposits were paid. His parents were excited. My family was invested. Ending an engagement over food disagreements sounded insane when I said it out loud in my head. Last week, 1 week before it all went down, he started talking about the honeymoon. He wanted to go to Thailand. He lit up describing the food, the markets, the beaches, the nightlife. When I hesitated, he shut down immediately. Of course, he said bitterly. You're going to ruin this too. Thai food uses peanuts in a lot of dishes, I reminded him gently. It's risky for me. I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying we have to be careful. You're using your allergy to control everything, he snapped. Where we eat, where we travel, what my family cooks, it's like you hold it over everyone's head. The word control stung. It made my legitimate fear sound like a manipulation tactic. We had a huge fight. I told him that if he couldn't take my allergy seriously, then we had a real problem. He told me I was paranoid, that people with real allergies don't make such a big deal about it. The next day, he apologized again, said he'd been talking to his ex about anxiety and allergies, that she'd mentioned how sometimes people convince themselves they're allergic when it's really psychological. He told me he'd read that adult anxiety could mimic symptoms. I stared at him and reminded him I'd had this allergy for 23 years. There were hospital records, test results, doctors. It wasn't in my head. He claimed he believed me. I wanted to believe that he did. I thought stupidly that we were past it. Then tonight happened. The night it finally went too far didn't feel special at first. It felt aggressively normal. I got home around 6:30, tired but not destroyed, the kind of weekday where you just want to change into soft clothes and eat something warm. When I opened the door, the apartment smelled like tomatoes and garlic, and something comforting I couldn't quite name. The lights were low, music playing quietly from the speaker, a little too curated to be casual. Ethan emerged from the kitchen with a grin. Perfect timing, he said. Dinner's ready. On the table, there were plates already set, a bowl of spaghetti with meat sauce in the center, steam curling up in soft spirals. My chest loosened a little. Spaghetti with meat sauce was one of our safe meals, something he'd made a dozen times before without incident. No nuts, no hidden ingredients, no questions. You cooked? I asked, hanging my bag on the chair. He shrugged, like it was nothing. Figured I'd take care of you for once, he said. You've had a rough week. There was something in his tone that I couldn't quite place, but I was tired, and I wanted to believe him. I washed my hands, sat down, and let him serve me a generous portion. The first bite tasted familiar, savory, rich, a little tang from the tomatoes. The second bite tasted off, sweeter somehow. Not bad exactly, just different. You changed the recipe? I asked, twirling another forkful. He shook his head, already digging into his own plate. Just experimenting a little, he said. You like it? I hesitated and then took a third bite. That was the one that triggered the alarm bells. My tongue tingled, a faint buzzing under the surface, like pins and needles. The roof of my mouth started to feel strange, and a faint tightness bloomed at the back of my throat. I put my fork down. Ethan, I said slowly, what exactly did you put in this? He didn't look up from his plate. The usual, he said. Tomatoes, garlic, beef, herbs. You know the drill. The tingling spread, growing sharper, more insistent. My heart picked up speed. I swallowed and felt a slight resistance, the way you do right before a full reaction kicks in. I knew my body. This wasn't anxiety. This wasn't my imagination trying to sabotage a nice evening. This was real. My voice came out hoarse. Are you sure you didn't add anything else? Anything new? He was scrolling on his phone now, barely even pretending to be focused on dinner. Same as always, he said. Why are you doing this? Just eat. The room felt smaller, hotter. I could feel my airway tightening with each breath, a familiar, creeping terror that I had hoped never to experience again. I pushed back my chair and stood up, my legs unsteady, and headed toward the hallway where my bag was. Behind me, I heard him chuckle. It was a soft sound, but it sliced right through me. My fingers shook as I dug through my bag, searching for the injector. By the time I wrapped my hand around it, my lips felt thick, my tongue heavy, my breath was loud in my own ears. What's wrong? Ethan called from the dining room, his tone light. You okay over there? Something's wrong with the food, I managed, my voice warped and strained. My mouth, my throat. He came to the doorway and leaned against it, arms crossed. He wasn't rushing toward me. He wasn't panicking. He was watching. Is it, he asked, head tilted, or are you just being dramatic again? The word again hit like a slap. I stared at him, clutching the injector, my mind stumbling over the realization that if I didn't help myself, no one else in this room was going to. I uncapped the device and pressed it hard into my thigh. The familiar jolt of pain shot through my leg, followed by the hot rush spreading through my bloodstream. Relief should have been immediate and overwhelming, but this time it was partial, like someone had loosened a noose but not removed it. My throat was still swelling. Ethan watched me, eyes narrowed, mouth curved in a small, unsettling smile. You're really going to use that? He asked. Over spaghetti? I tried to speak, but the words broke apart in my throat. I leaned against the wall, dragging in ragged breaths, and croaked out, What did you put in the sauce? He shrugged, casual, like this was all an odd little experiment. I put a bit of peanut spread in, he said. Just a spoonful. I wanted to prove you're faking it. For a second, everything inside me went silent. No panic, no noise, just a cold, stunned void. You're fine, he added, almost impatient. See, you're not dying. You're just anxious. I wasn't fine. The injector was not a cure. It was a delay button. Without additional treatment, I knew exactly where this could go. I could feel my airway thickening, my chest tightening, my body buzzing with a terrifying combination of adrenaline and oxygen starvation. I staggered back into the dining room, grabbed my phone with shaking hands, and dialed emergency services. When the operator answered, I could barely force air through my throat. Anaphylaxis, I gasped. Peanuts. My address is... I stumbled through the numbers, each syllable a fight. The dispatcher's voice was calm, asking me to stay on the line, but I couldn't respond anymore. Breathing took all my focus. Ethan's expression shifted as he realized who I had called. His smile faded. What are you doing? He demanded. Are you seriously calling them? I didn't answer. Instead, I dragged myself to the kitchen drawer, yanked it open, and fumbled for a plastic bag. My vision tunneled at the edges as I scooped a portion of the spaghetti into the bag. If I passed out, I needed proof. I needed someone to see what he had done. What are you doing? He repeated, louder now. Why are you saving the food? His voice was losing its amused edge, replaced by irritation and the first hints of fear. In the distance, faint but growing louder, I heard sirens. Relief washed through me, thin and fragile. This is ridiculous, he snapped. You're fine. Tell them you're fine when they get here. I shook my head, clutching the bag in one hand and bracing myself against the counter with the other. Every breath felt like trying to pull air through a straw. I stumbled to the door and managed to get it open just as two paramedics rushed up the stairs and into the apartment. Anaphylaxis? One of them asked immediately, eyes darting to my swollen face, the injector on the table. I nodded, too breathless to answer. I pointed weakly at the used device. They moved fast. Oxygen mask over my nose and mouth, blood pressure cuff tightening around my arm, hands steady as they started another injection through an IV. Their efficiency anchored me, held me back from slipping all the way into panic. Behind them, Ethan hovered. She's okay, he insisted. She just gets anxious. She does this. One of the paramedics glanced at him, unimpressed. Her throat is severely swollen, he said. This is a medical emergency. They transferred me to a stretcher. As they started rolling me out, I thrust the plastic bag toward the closest paramedic. Evidence, I whispered through the mask. He put peanuts in it. I'm allergic. The paramedic took the bag, his expression tightening. He put this in your food knowing you're allergic? He asked quietly. I nodded. We're taking this with us, he said. Ethan moved toward him. You can't just take our dinner, he protested. This is insane. She's overreacting. The paramedics didn't bother responding. They wheeled me out, down the stairs, through the cool night air that felt like needles against my skin. The door to the ambulance closed on Ethan's voice. Inside, the world shrank to the hiss of oxygen, the beep of monitors, and the low murmur of professional voices. One paramedic focused on me, adjusting the flow of medication, checking my airway, asking questions I answered in broken fragments. The other radioed ahead to the hospital. Adult female, severe allergic reaction, known peanut allergy, he said. Used her injector at home, partial response. Possible intentional exposure. We have a food sample. Do you want police at the hospital? The paramedic at my side asked gently. I nodded, tears burning at the corners of my eyes. Yes, I rasped. Absolutely. By the time we reached the ER, my breathing had eased just enough for me to stay conscious without feeling like I was drowning. They rushed me into a bay, bright lights overhead, cold hands fitting monitors and leads to my skin. More medication. More questions. More notes. A nurse leaned over me, her eyes kind but hard. Can you tell me what happened? She asked. I told her, in halting sentences, about the dinner, the taste, the tingling, his confession, the phone call, the bag of food. Her pen paused for a moment as she wrote. So your boyfriend intentionally gave you an allergen? She said quietly, knowing you could die from it? I nodded. She exhaled, slow and controlled. That's assault, she said. Possibly attempted murder, depending on how the district attorney sees it. Hearing those words spoken out loud, in that sterile room with the machines humming, made everything click into place. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a couple's fight gone too far. He hadn't just underestimated my allergy. He had gambled with my life. When the officers arrived a short time later and pulled up chairs beside my bed, their notepads ready, their eyes serious, I realized that from this moment forward, nothing about my life would ever be the same. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Even after the medications kicked in and the swelling eased, a low, stubborn ache clung to my throat. Breathing was easier, but each inhale reminded me of how close I'd come. I lay in the dim hospital room, machines blinking quietly beside me, trying to make sense of the fact that the man I loved had done this. Around 11 p.m., a doctor checked my vitals and told me I'd stabilized. He left, and for a moment the room was silent, until my phone lit up. 15 missed calls, over 30 messages. Ethan. I stared at the notifications glowing on the nightstand. My pulse quickened, not from affection, but from dread. Part of me wanted to throw the phone away. Another part, the wounded part, needed to know what he would say after nearly killing me. I unlocked it. Are you okay? Please answer me. I'm sorry. I didn't think it would go that far. You're overreacting. It was just a little bit. You're making this worse than it is. If you tell the police, you'll ruin everything. Don't do this. Please don't. You'll make me look like a monster. We can fix this. Just don't say anything. Elena, talk to me, please. The messages shifted from panic to guilt-tripping to anger to bargaining. He sounded exactly like someone scrambling to regain control, not someone worried for my life. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes, but the silence didn't last. 2 cops entered my room 20 minutes later, a younger man and an older woman. They introduced themselves gently and asked if I felt up to talking. I nodded. Telling the story hurt in ways I didn't expect. Saying the words out loud made everything more real. I explained the comments over the past year, the Thai dinner incident with his family, the pad Thai, the honeymoon fight, the ex-girlfriend's influence, then the dinner tonight, the tingling, the confession, the laughing, the way he watched. The officers took meticulous notes. When the female officer asked whether I had any proof besides my testimony, I told her about the bag of spaghetti the paramedics had taken. She left briefly and returned with it, now sealed and labeled. We'll send it to the lab, she said, but it smells like peanut butter. I doubt there will be any ambiguity. The male officer asked, Do you know where Ethan is now? He might come here, I said. He's been calling nonstop. They exchanged a look and radioed other units. If he shows up, the younger officer said, he'll be taken into custody immediately. 10 minutes later, shouting erupted down the hall, a familiar voice, angry, panicked, demanding. I have a right to see her. She's my fiancée. An officer's voice responded, calm but firm. Sir, you need to calm down. You're under arrest. For what? I didn't do anything? Assault with a deadly weapon. His voice grew fainter as they led him away, yelling about misunderstandings, about love, about how I was blowing things out of proportion. The female officer remained beside me. He's in custody, she said softly. We'll handle the rest. When she left, the room felt heavier and lighter at the same time, like grief and relief tangled together. Not long after, another call came in. Not from Ethan this time, but from an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A woman's voice, sharp, older, furious. Is this about Ethan? What did you do? What did I do? I said hoarsely. He tried to kill me. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. He made a mistake. You're making this into some huge thing to punish him. He admitted it, I said. I have a severe allergy. He knows that. You're exaggerating. Even his ex said. I hung up and blocked the number before she could finish. 2 minutes later, the phone rang again. His sister, yelling. I hung up. Then his dad. Blocked. Then a group chat notification. Ethan's friends posting vague comments about vindictive women and false accusations. Blocked. All of them. My phone finally went still. At nearly 2 a.m, a nurse checked on me. She looked at my swollen eyes, the stress written on my face, and said, I saw the police report. I'm so sorry, honey. People don't take allergies seriously until something like this happens. You didn't deserve this. For the first time that night, I felt something warm break through the cold panic. Gratitude. In the morning, the doctor released me with strict instructions. My throat felt raw, but the tightness was gone. I took a rideshare straight to the police station. The detective helped me file a formal complaint and walked me through the paperwork for an emergency protective order. It was approved within the hour. Ethan couldn't contact me now, at all. When I arrived at my older sister Maya's apartment, she was waiting at the door before I even knocked. She pulled me into her arms the moment she saw my face, and I nearly crumpled to the floor. You stay here, she said, for as long as you need. But I still had to face one thing, the apartment. We gathered a small group. Maya, my dad, and 2 of his close friends, men who practically helped raise us. They followed me inside like a protective wall. The place was wrecked. Clothes scattered, cabinets open, broken dishes, torn photos. My favorite mug shattered on the floor. It looked like he'd torn through the apartment in a rage, trying to erase every trace of me. My dad closed his eyes and took a slow breath. We'll get you out of here, he said. All of this, today. We packed everything of mine we could salvage. 3 hours of stuffing memories into boxes. 3 hours of avoiding anything that smelled like him. I left my key on the counter. The landlord responded to my message that evening, saying he'd waive penalties because of the police report. He was kind about it. Kinder than the man I had almost married. The next hours blurred. Exhaustion, paperwork, Maya making tea I couldn't drink because my stomach was a knot. Then the news came through online. Ethan's bail was set at $50,000. His parents paid it immediately. He walked free that evening, bound by the protective order, but still free. His family exploded with accusations. His mother called my mom, screaming that I was vindictive. His father accused my dad of enabling hysteria. His sister posted cryptic messages about women who ruin good men. His ex-girlfriend shared a long, vague rant about false narratives and weaponizing trauma. My friends reached out. They'd heard rumors. I told them the truth. They believed me. Some cried with me. Some offered their couches. Some brought groceries. A few days later, wedding vendors began calling. I canceled everything, fully prepared to lose the money. But one by one, they refunded me. All deposits returned, the venue coordinator said. Given what happened, it's the right thing. Word was spreading. People understood. 2 weeks later, the preliminary hearing arrived. Ethan was there with a lawyer his family hired. He didn't look at me. Not once. His mother stared at me like she wanted to tear me apart with her eyes. His lawyer claimed it was an accident, that he didn't know how severe the allergy was, that I was overreacting. The prosecutor presented the texts, the admission, the history, the food sample. The judge didn't hesitate. He was bound over for trial. When I walked out of the courthouse, Maya was there, arms crossed, jaw set. We're getting through this, she said. I promise. And for the first time since the night my throat closed, I believed her. The months leading up to the trial were some of the longest of my life. Time didn't move normally. It stretched and sagged, days feeling slow and watery, nights hitting me in sharp, breath-stealing waves. On paper, I was safe. Ethan couldn't come near me. He couldn't contact me. His bail conditions and the protective order were ironclad. But fear has its own logic. It lingers in the corners of rooms, in the quiet between footsteps, in the flicker of headlights outside your window at night. I stayed with my sister Maya the first 2 weeks. She didn't let me spend a single day alone. She made me tea, cooked meals, sat beside me on the couch in the evenings, watching shows neither of us cared about just so the room stayed warm. When I finally signed a lease on a small apartment across town, she helped me move in. The place was bright, clean, quiet. Everything my old apartment had stopped feeling like long before that night. But trauma doesn't care how nice your surroundings are. Some nights, I'd startle awake, convinced I was tasting something sweet and wrong on my tongue. Other times, I'd freeze in the grocery aisle, staring at labels, reading the same ingredient list over and over until my eyes blurred. My body didn't trust anything anymore. Not food, not silence, not my judgment. Especially not my judgment. Because I had loved him. I had almost married him. The trial didn't start until 4 months after the hearing. He delayed it as long as possible. Motions, requests, filings I didn't understand. Each delay felt personal, like he was trying to stretch his shadow over every corner of my life, refusing to let me move forward. During those months, his ex, Chloe, began slipping into the narrative more aggressively. She never contacted me directly, but she made herself visible online. Vague posts about good men being destroyed by lies. Comments on mutual acquaintances' photos about truth eventually coming out. It wasn't what she said. It was how she wanted people to fill in the blanks. People loved a villain. She wanted to hand them one. His mother and sister were worse. They posted nonstop about betrayal, manipulation, vindictive women. They never used my name, but they didn't have to. Their meaning was clear. But my friends, my real ones, stayed. They checked in. They dropped off meals. They reminded me that I wasn't alone, even when part of me still felt like I was trapped in that apartment, with him laughing in the background. When the trial finally began, I expected to feel relief. Instead, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Walking into the courtroom was like walking into a refrigerator, cold, sterile, humming faintly with tension. Ethan sat at the defense table beside his lawyer, shoulders straight, jaw tense, expression blank. He looked smaller somehow, thinner, like the months had taken something from him too. His family sat behind him in a tight cluster, eyes sharp, lips tight, radiating hostility. He didn't look at me, not once. The prosecutor started with the simple facts: the food sample, my medical records, the paramedic's testimony, the ER's documentation. Then came the texts. Every message he sent me the night he poisoned me, flashed on a screen, read aloud, preserved in digital ink. The jury watched in stony silence. Then I testified. My hands shook, my voice cracked. I had rehearsed the story 100 times in my head, but saying it aloud, seeing the way strangers' faces shifted as they imagined what I had gone through, felt like exposing a wound I'd barely stitched together. When I described the moment he confessed, just a spoonful to prove you're faking, I saw one juror visibly recoil. The defense tried to paint me as controlling, suggested I had exaggerated symptoms for attention, implied I had manipulated him emotionally. They never said it outright, but the insinuations were heavy, coded in condescension. They brought up the honeymoon argument, twisted my caution into restrictive behavior, hinted that I wanted to use my allergy to dictate his life. But every accusation crumbled under the weight of evidence. Hospital records, allergy tests, photos of my swollen airway, the EpiPen used documented by paramedics, his admitted confession, the protective order, the trashed apartment. By the time the prosecutor finished, the air felt thick with inevitability. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, everyone rose. The room held its breath. The foreperson stood. "Guilty," she said. "Assault with a deadly weapon." Ethan sagged in his seat. His mother burst into tears, not soft, sorrowful tears, but angry, howling ones filled with indignation. Chloe looked down at her lap. His sister shook her head as if the universe had personally betrayed her. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I didn't feel triumph. I felt released. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was firm, her voice crisp as she read the decision. 3 years. with 18 months served in custody and the remainder suspended to probation upon completion of anger management and mandatory allergy education. It was fair, maybe lenient, maybe strict. It didn't matter. What mattered was that a line had been drawn. When they led him away, he still didn't look at me, and I realized in that moment that I didn't need him to. The version of him I had loved, the gentle, funny, charming man, had never existed in the way I once believed. He had been a mask, a version of himself he performed until he didn't feel like performing anymore. After sentencing, life moved on, slowly, awkwardly, unevenly. I returned to work. My coworkers hugged me. Some cried, some didn't know what to say. I accepted all of it. I started therapy. I learned to cook again without my hands trembling. I learned that healing is not a straight line. It's a looping path with cliffs and rest stops, and sometimes unexpected peace. 18 months passed. He was released early for good behavior. But I wasn't afraid. The protective order is permanent. He can't contact me. And if he tries, the consequences will be immediate. His family still posts online, still calls me a liar, a manipulator, a villain. But they don't know me. They don't know my breathing stopped that night. They don't know how it feels to be watched by someone you love while air is stolen from your lungs. They don't know that you can mourn a person who is still alive because the version you loved died long before the truth came out. I know what happened. The law knows what happened, and I am here, alive, healing, stepping into a future that no longer belongs to him.